should be done.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, so hello everyone. I am Parisa Wright. I'm the founder of Greener and Cleaner, which is a community-focused environmental charity. And basically, I set this up about 3 years ago. My background. Oh my gosh, I need.
No, you're fine.
Sorry, mute, unmute, I don't know. My background is actually legal, not environmental, not engineering. But about 3 years ago, I had come back from maternity leave after having, next slide please, my second child, and I realised that for the past year of my maternity leave, I'd been seeing kids having to do student strikes, and I just thought it was shocking. And I worried what kind of future I was leaving, to my kids, and I felt really responsible for the mess that I'd helped make. I looked around me and I just felt completely alone. I felt like, like myself, people hadn't really thought about the consequences of their actions and weren't really thinking about them and weren't really engaged, and that, I had to do something. So I set up a small group on social media, and it went from about 20 people to about 2,500 people, and now it's at about 6,500 people. But it was all people who actually were interested and wanted to find out more. And the model was peer-to-peer. So people sharing their tips, people sharing their case studies, their stories, asking for advice. It's been really, really lovely. It's grown and it's gone from strength to strength. And we are basically taking action and making our communities better, greener, healthier, and more sustainable together, rather than waiting for, politics to allow for that, let's say, or spending to allow for that. So we're basically sharing personal stories and also the personal effect of the issues out there. So whether that's pollinators, whether that's air pollution, whether that's carbon emissions, these things seem so ethereal to most people. They feel like it doesn't affect them and it's not relevant to them. And it's also seen with stereotypes. It's a middle-class white person thing, or it's a crusty thing, or whatever the latest horrible language is that's coming out. And actually, it's about all of us, and it affects all of us and all of our families. And once we get that message through to people, it's amazing how quickly things change. People go from starting off thinking they want to use a reusable straw, have that win, and then suddenly they're going on to something else. A year later they've got a green energy supplier and they're eating less meat, for example. But the group has always been about sort of accessible and inclusive ways of reaching people, so not extremes. And we found that people were really feeling empowered, and especially we started doing events outside in the community, and people were getting involved in workshops about how to save money by improving the energy efficiency of their homes, how to use sewing machines to fix things. We did efforts to make scrubs and masks from upcycled beddings for the food banks and for the hospitals. And there have just been lots and lots of wonderful events, and people have just repeatedly come back saying, I feel really empowered. I now know who my counsellor is. I mean, to be honest, I didn't know 3 years ago. I now know who my counsellor is, and I can ask them to fix that crossing for my school, or I can ask them about an air quality monitor, or I can tell them that I don't mind the verge being left along for the pollinators, or whatever it is. And it's amazing how the engagement has gone up in the community, from public consultations where maybe 70 people might write in and respond to it, to suddenly 1,000 people writing in, and they've got the highest response rate of any London borough for the Air Quality Action Plan consultation last year, which was amazing, 4 times the London average. And that's just because people had access to information about what the issue was and how it affected them personally and what they could do about it. So, sorry, the lights are going a bit funny, but anyway. So, one thing that we found was that the government and councils were trying to make efforts over the last 3 years, some efforts to get to net zero. The problem they encountered, and we all encounter, I guess, time and time again, was there just wasn't the communication with different groups of people in society so that people understood why that change was relevant to them and how they personally benefited, and if there was funding, how they could get access to that funding. And so while this was, dealt with by our group on social media and our website and our Facebook and in our meetings, that was only accessing 6,500 households or so. and actually it was siloed. So the next clear stage was to make sure that more people were aware of what the issues are, how they affect them personally, and what they can do about it without spending money, that will be impactful. So a mainstream setting is the clear, winner on that. And obviously it will support government efforts and council efforts if more of the population understand what the issues are, how it affects them personally and what they can do. So when the council does something like a school street or allowing the grass to grow long or a cycle lane, there isn't tons of angry voices making them fear for votes or brands fearing that there will be a backlash if they make an effort on net zero, because people will understand, and indeed people will be pressing more for it, I imagine. So basically the next step is shopping centres. Everyone wants council shopping centres, everyone wants people returning to the shopping centres, and at the moment, because of COVID, because of online shopping, people aren't doing that. And ultimately there are units empty in these shopping centres. So LaSalle are putting in about £250,000 worth of rental and service charge to give us a unit in the hub. Oh my goodness, I have totally missed all my slides. Anyway, maybe you can just flick through the slides. If we flick through the slides, there you go, that's some of our imagery. So basically we were sharing ideas and then individuals sharing their own projects. So for example, for Ashiki and Bug Hotels, etc., etc. Being able to share wins has been a big thing, and being able to share personal stories. So that's it. Next slide, please. So this is the unit that we're looking at for the pilot. The idea is the pilot will go for 3 years, and at 12 to 18 months we will have the data that we need to create the blueprint to launch another 15 to 20 hubs. So 15 to 20 hubs we want up and running by 2025 essentially, so that may be staggered. But essentially during the first year to 18 months we will start putting out feelers looking for other community groups and charities like ours to provide the volunteers to man this hub, to share their stories and the information and signpost people, to lead workshops, etc., etc., and also identify the shopping centres and council partners as well, and making sure that they can do the same thing. So the council, for example, in this project and hopefully elsewhere, is putting in money to fund the Library of Things for the unit. Library of Things is a fantastic project which has already gone into libraries in other parts of London, but this will be the first time it's going into a mainstream setting where people can come and rent a carpet cleaner for a day at £8 or a power drill or whatever it is, and that will be up all along one side of the hub. There will be these lockers, so some people will come in for that, other people will come in because they're already engaged. And the lovely thing is this unit's going to be next door to McDonald's, new look, opposite the Entertainer, and all these people potentially who aren't thinking about it at all. I had a few conversations the other day with people outside, and a lot of them just didn't understand how the environment was relevant to them at all. They had literally no opinion. They will see their peers going into the hub, they will see what's going on in the hub, and hopefully it will just become a normal part of life to have that conversation. It will become normalised, it will become popularised, and they will know where they can go when they're unsure, and they will know where they can go when they're angry and cynical or overwhelmed and confused. So we're really excited about that, evolving out of the silos and having this mainstream hub. And a lot of the research around behavioural science and climate change that we've seen coming from the likes of Dr. Richard Carmichael and Bayes and the Nudge team, etc., has shown that really peer-to-peer conversations are really important. Story sharing is really important. Giving people actual physical help to learn to sew or to do practical things that they want to do for free is really important. And also, one thing that we've had highlighted is we need to have satellite events in other parts of the town, city or borough to make sure that all different groups, including those marginalised for whatever reason, are included. And so in those situations, we're reaching out to community leaders and organisations in those other parts of the borough so that we can engage with them, find out what they want to see and what they want to hear about, and then collaborate with them on events in those communities that perhaps don't come into the mainstream shopping centre. So that's really exciting, and all the conversations we've had around the information that we can be collecting during this pilot have been fascinating. So obviously we thought we would collect the data to create the blueprint and roll out the blueprint, but obviously if we're collecting data on what works and what doesn't work with engaging with different groups of the community and what the main blockers are and what they want to hear about, that data is incredibly useful for filling in the gaps for the government, for the council, for all the charities and NGOs out there who are working so hard. So obviously we will be clear with people about what data we're collecting and how we're using it, but it will really make a big difference if people can know how to tailor the events and the support they're giving people and getting us all to net zero. And obviously the more effectively we can engage with different groups, the more effectively we're going to get this popularised and have everyone on board next time the government comes out with some sort of net zero thing, or indeed pushing for more. So that's been really exciting, and Dr. Richard Carmichael at Imperial University, who's done the seminal report for the CCC about behavioural change and behavioural science and climate change, has kindly agreed to endorse our project and work with us on the research side of it. So that's really, really wonderful as well. Basically, we're hoping that this is going to be a really inclusive and accessible project. We're reaching out to different charities locally, we're reaching out to food banks, we're reaching out to different community leaders in other parts of the borough and representing different more marginalised or disenfranchised groups, to make sure that we're providing something both in the centre and outside of the centre that meets the needs of what people want to see and how they want to hear it and from whom. So hopefully we can bring people in, get them involved in the conversation with one or two things that they already are worried about or interested in, and gradually that will grow. So hopefully that will be a support and an incentive to brands, to councils and to the government when they're trying to make their net zero efforts. Support and incentive. So that's kind of the project, and ultimately, this is some of the stuff that will be going on at the Hub. I'm not very good with slides, obviously. These are some of the examples of things that will be going on at the Hubs. There'll be internships and job opportunities, hopefully. We'll find out what people care about, how we can make it happen. There'll be research, there'll be a community fridge, there'll be a library of things. We'll be doing things like clothes swaps, work around air quality, workshops to teach people skills that they want to be able to fix things and mend things. And sort of like, a lot of people are interested in the biodiversity side of things. They come in to learn about how they can make hedgehog homes, and then they go away knowing that they need to change to a green energy provider, that sort of thing. So hopefully it's going to be a really successful project, and what we need to do now, having raised the money obviously for the rent and service charge, the library of things, is that we need to get some basic roles funded now for this pilot, to make sure that the research can be done properly, to make sure that the next hubs can be set up and all the partnerships we want with different charities and different groups of the community can be effectively done, and so we can have events going on every other day or every 3 days, as well as our 50 to 100 volunteers who are going to be there on shifts being managed properly and supported in what they're doing, so, and the fit out, etc, etc. So we will be looking for
Here comes the elevator pitch.
Yeah, welcome to elevator pitch. We are looking for founder donors, let's say, to raise over $500,000 for the 3-year project of the pilot, and then the other hubs, which we'll hope to launch a few of them literally from 12 to 18 months into this pilot, will be about 380 grand each time in terms of this model. So this shopping centre puts in their bit, the council puts in their bit, and then hopefully a founder donor will cover the 3 years worth of salaries and fitting costs and all that sort of stuff. So it's really exciting. It's a very small amount of money compared to the massive impact hopefully it's going to have. There's going to be lots of people putting in their time for free, as usual in this space, but in a way that kind of shows their community how much normal people like them actually care about this and are really engaged and are actually walking the walk rather than just, talking about it. So that's the project in summary.
Thank you. So